Good afternoon. It's so good to be in your home again, and I pray that you're listening with your Bible there near you to turn to Philippians 3:10. Philippians 3:10 is our verse for today. Philippians 3:10 reads, "That I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable to his death." Being made conformable to his death. A couple of questions for you today. Have you ever prayed to be stronger just to realize that you're getting weaker? Have you ever prayed to be stronger just to realize that you're getting weaker? Have you ever felt a failure as a Christian? I think everybody has. We've all feel like we failed as a Christian in many ways in our life. Excuse me. Maybe you have dedicated your whole Christian adult life to God to do his work, to feel defeated that what you had done was not enough. You ever felt that way? You felt like you've worked so hard and you felt like that excuse me, that you just couldn't get it done right and you felt defeated about it? And then you might ask the question to yourself, what more does he want? What more does God want from me? Many Christians are struggling to make their lives count for Christ. They truly are. Only to discover that the Christian life isn't working out like it's supposed to. How is the Christian life supposed to work out? Do you know? Do I know? Who knows? What's the key element for the Christian life to be working out the way it is supposed to? When one feels like a failure, especially in a culture that places so much importance on success, there's a dull pain that can't fully be described. Have you ever just done so much for the church? You felt defeated. You felt this pain that you couldn't describe down deep within. You just couldn't understand it. This dull pain that wouldn't go away. American culture demands that we be successful. We hear it all the time. You can do better than that. You can do whatever you want to do in life. We've all said that to our children. We've all been said that to by our parents, by teachers. People will measure our significance by what we have accomplished. Significance is not accomplishment. Accomplishment is not significance. Stay tuned now. This demand for success doesn't stop outside the doors of the church. The church puts rules and regulations on people. The church puts protocol, plans on people. So does families, so does schools, so does universities. We have so many rules on this earth. And don't get me wrong, we need rules. We'll learn a little bit more about that. We have to have rules. We have to have things in control. We have to have leaders. We have to have protocol. We have to have policies. We have to have plans in place. But sometimes they can be overwhelming to some people and to most of us. Many Christians are struggling to make their lives count for Christ. How do we make our lives count for Christ? And then when they're doing that, they only discover that the Christian life isn't working out like it's supposed to. And again, we can ask the question, how is it supposed to be? How is the Christian life supposed to work out? They are sincere about their commitment to Christ. And they have giving it their best effort. Sometimes people flat wear down working to do what a Christian is supposed to do. Yet they are frustrated because they can't live to what they think a Christian ought to be. Who wrote the instructions on how a Christian ought to be? No human on this earth did that, because I've not seen a human on this earth myself that has been perfect, that knows how a Christian life is supposed to be. We have the Holy Scriptures for that, and we overlook the part that we need to be looking at deeply. They've concluded that their spiritual life is about as good as it's ever going to get, and that isn't great. Some people just feel defeated about their Christian life. They don't feel it's very great. Although they're singing, playing the piano, doing other instruments, teaching, being a deacon, being the kitchen director, being whatever you want to be in the church, but you still feel defeated as a Christian. You still feel that emptiness inside. Why is that? Many who have professed Christ as Savior have wondered, is this all there is to it? Is this it? Is this all there is to being a Christian? Christians want a victorious Christian life. But how do they find it? Christians today are coming in the church with a half smile. They carry more burdens in the church from their families, from their work, from their spouses, from their children. We go in the church with so many burdens and, as they used to call it, luggage on our back, that it's hard to sit there and even worship in song. It's hard to sit there and worship through Jesus Christ. It's hard to sit there with any kind of emotion other than just burdens. There's an old song that said, "Take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there." We don't do that. There's very few people that can go to the altar, take their burdens down there, leave their burdens at the altar, and get up victorious. Because we're humans, for one thing, and we have emotions and feelings, and it's hard to let it go. So many Christians today measure the success of their spiritual lives by whether they live up to religious rules. Rules for this, rules for that. Do it this way, do it that way. If you don't do it my way, hit the highway. And unfortunately, our churches today are saying that to people. If you can't abide by these rules, our protocol, our policy, and the way we do things, if you don't like it, hit the highway. And people are hitting the highway. They're leaving the churches. I remember Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and Wednesday night were just as full each service as the other one. And then I remember Sunday night dropping off from Sunday morning as the time went on. And I certainly remember Wednesday night becoming little crowds of people. Why is that? We'll find out in a minute. So what happened a lot of times with people who felt like their life was just eaten up by religious rules, what they did was they focused on their performance within the church. They focused on their performance. Everything you do in the church is a performance. Singing, playing music, you're performing. Teaching, preaching, you are performing in a way. Anything you do for the church is a performance. But it's how you react to that performance and What's in your heart that counts. An important cornerstone of a civilized society is law. Now, don't you know? We have got to have law. We've got to have rules. We've got to have regulations. We have to have protocol. We have to have plans in place. Somebody has to keep order. The Bible even teaches no dissent and disorder in the church. So you don't want the preacher to start preaching and somebody stand up and just start talking. I was in a church like that once. Every time the pastor would get up to start preaching, this gentleman, old man, would stand up and say, I got something I got to say. He couldn't say it during the singing or before the singing. He had to say it just before the preacher got up, and it was lengthy sometime. It says we have to have law. We have all been taught that if we don't obey the rules, we're going to be punished. How many times have you told your children, you better listen to me, or you're going to reap what you sow? You better listen to me, or you'll be punished. If my daddy caught you doing something in church, and he just didn't like it, he had rules that nobody else on this earth had, he would look at you and said, wait till you get home. Well, we waited patiently. We had nothing else to do but wait. And you had this, talking about a feeling in your innermost stomach area. You never knew when he was going to call you, and he did call you by your name. And we were all named 3 names, our first, our middle, and our last. When he said, when he wanted me for something good, it was Jojo or Jody. But when he said my full name, oh, you knew that gut-wrenching feeling. The time had come for the punishment. The time was at hand. He didn't ever forget that he promised you a punishment. I think he just thought about it to make you sweat. If we get caught breaking the rules, we have to pay the price. If you drive 55 in a 25, you're going to get caught eventually, and you're going to pay the price. You're going to pay a fine. You're going to go before a judge. Something will happen to make you think, shake you up a little bit. If you steal, or take the life of another person, or if you beat your children or your wife, you do the crime, you're going to pay the price. We're taught from the cradle as a baby to the coffin to obey the law. From the cradle to the coffin, you're taught to obey the law. We had rules in school. We had protocol at work. We had plans set in place everywhere. And there were rules. The law could not be broken. Christians oftentimes have misunderstood the purpose of the law. Did you hear that? Christians oftentimes have misunderstood the purpose of the law. The law was given so people would see their own inadequacy to live in a way that glorifies God. That's what Christians are supposed to do, is glorify God in all they do. When you obey the law, you're glorifying God because He put it into place. When you're being a good parent, you're obeying the law. When you're not beating your wife or mistreating your husband, you're obeying the law. When you're not stealing, you're obeying the law, and many, many other things you can think of. The law was given so people would see their own inadequacy to live in a way that glorifies God. That's what it does. It glorifies God. You're supposed to glorify God. So how can we feel fulfilled? How can a Christian feel fulfilled? Well, you can witness to people, which is what God intends for us to do. Spread the gospel, tell people about Jesus. You can fast. Fasting is skipping a meal completely for the glory of God. You can pray. But let me tell you something. Witnessing, fasting and praying will not cause God to accept you any more than He already does. Yes, you should witness. Yes, we should fast and pray. It's in every Bible that I've ever read. But it will not cause God to accept you any more than He already does. There's no stipulation on God accepting you for who you are. No matter what you've done in life, what acts you've committed, what failures you've failed, God will not accept you any more than He does as you are by doing, witnessing, fasting, and praying. You can also get back in the church, start tithing, and again praying. Getting back in church is important. You've heard me say that. I think it's very important. It balances our lives. Starting to tithe is a mandate from God in the book of Malachi, the last book in the Old Testament, Malachi 3. And praying, we all know, is important. But getting back in church, starting to tithe or pray, does not lead God to accept you any more than He already does. These are things that truly polish your performance for God. But that's still not the answer. What is the Christian life supposed to be? What is the answer? Some of the most miserable people are being overtaken by the waves of religious activity with no fulfillment in their lives. I think sometimes we've got too much going on in the church that's not glorifying Jesus Christ. I think fellowship is good, but sometimes that doesn't glorify Jesus Christ. I think the meeting of youth is good, but are they truly glorifying Jesus at any time? I think couples classes are good, but are they truly glorifying Jesus at any time during their meetings? Or do they get together and just laugh and joke and cut up and eat? Most churches eat more than I've ever seen in my life. They have a meal several times a week. They meet once a month for a big meal. They have reunions. They have baby showers, wedding showers. You name it, there's food somewhere on a table in the center at your church or in someone's house. Activity is, the waves of religious activity will knock you down. They'll knock you down, and it'll make you feel so bad sometime because you feel defeated. You're not getting fulfilled within your soul. We as Christians have the desire to be successful in our spiritual life. I am not knocking fellowship. I am not knocking showers for people that are getting married, baby showers for people bringing in lives to the world. I am not knocking witnessing, tithing. I'm a strong believer in all that. Fasting and praying, I'm a strong believer in that. Sometimes we can become so activity-minded, social-minded in the church that we aren't successful in our spiritual life. Now, Christianity isn't built around performance. Not at all. How well you can do something is not what a Christian life is supposed to be centered around. But it is centered on the person of Jesus Christ. We fail there. It is centered on the person of Jesus Christ. Christianity is a relationship. Christianity is a relationship between you, me, and Jesus Christ. It is not based on production or performance. Christianity is not based on production or performance. God desires that our focus be on the person, Jesus Christ. When Christians try to live by religious rules, they'll discover they just can't measure up. We can't keep up with them. Some churches make them every year. The bylaws. Very few churches share the bylaws with the people. Success in a Christian's life is not working harder. It is spiritual rest. Success in the life of a Christian is not working harder. It is a spiritual rest. If Satan can keep up feeling like a spiritual failure, keep you feeling like a spiritual failure, you will behave that way. If you feel like a failure, you'll droop your head, drop your eyes, and you'll feel like a failure. And you'll begin to act like a failure. And before you know it, you're out of the church. Because what good are you? There is a way to enjoy a successful life every day. There is more to Christian life than you are expressing right now. There's more to Christian life than you are experiencing right now as well. We must be brought to the place of brokenness, spiritually broken. We must be brought to that place. We need a more intimate relationship, a more intimate knowledge of God. Philippians 3:10, let's read that again from the Bible. That I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable unto his death. Maybe we need to suspend all programs and activities in the church for a while and simply begin to seek God. But if we don't have something in the church for the kids, they won't come. You're the parent. The need of the church is not for a new and improved or an approved approach to ministry. Everybody's trying to figure out what we can do to get the crowd in. Maybe we can pass out a corn on a cob. That ought to make them think, hey, I bet they'll come to church for corn on the cob. Quit thinking about what we can do to approach the ministry, but rather an intimate knowledge of God. Gather the men in the church, and that means the old and the young, maybe for a prayer meeting. I read where it said the church started meeting at 5:30 in the morning. The men just got up and went to church and prayed at 5:30 in the morning. How many people's willing to do that? How many of you men willing to do that? Some of you retired. Well, I retired. I don't get up at 5:30 anymore. I said to gather for prayer meeting. A prayer meeting to lift up God, to glorify God. Not a men's fish fry. Not a fishing tournament. But a prayer meeting at 5:30 in the morning. How many would be willing to do that? How about you women? Would the women, old and young, be willing to meet for a prayer meeting sometime during the day? I didn't say a ladies' fellowship. I said a prayer meeting. I didn't say a crochet class, but a prayer meeting. Allow your Sunday school classes to seek God in earnest. Give them time toward the end to seek God in earnest. Pray for the message. Pray for the singing. Seek God for each individual member in earnest. That would mean you would be praying for yourself. Teach the children to pray in earnest, to seeking God, to seek our God. Teach those children to pray in earnest. So, how do you have a successful Christian life? Glorifying Jesus Christ, the person, Jesus Christ. Glorify Him. It's not about the activities. It's not so much about the witnessing, the praying, the fasting, seeking God for self. Because all those are truly in vain if God doesn't live within your soul. It's not about the going to church as much as it is seeking God. It's not so much about tithing as it is seeking God within yourself. You want to put a pretty smile on your face? Seek God for a better Christian life. Seek Him today. I pray that you will begin to seek God. Other things in the church are important. Nobody's denying that. But we've got to be right here first. We've got to be seeking God and putting the person Jesus Christ first and foremost so He gets the glory for everything in our church. Hope you're at church Sunday morning. Have a good day. God bless you. Until next time, God bless you and your family.